see you all. Here we go with BT Sports Score. Big afternoon ahead, and right at the very centre of it, Leeds against Fulham, Jules.
Yes, the first Premier League match at Ellen Road in 16 years. You can watch full match coverage of that one on BT Sport 1, or stay with us on BT Sport 2, where we'll bring you all the goals from that game, plus all the scores up and down the country and around Europe as well.
Thank you very much. Let's start the chatter then, Steve. On Leeds, not the result they wanted last week, but so much to take from that match at Anfield.
Well, Daryl, of course it was. I mean, you've got a team that's had more possession, more passes than Liverpool on the day. You go to Anfield and you score 3 goals, you're going to be disappointed not to come away with something. You know, it was a game that they relished the challenge. They was unfazed. They showed
better defensively than we saw last week, and they've made 4 changes as a result in defence and in goals.
I said Arsenal with their finishes and the way they dominated possession and just caused Fulham no end of problems on the counter-attack.
Mitrovic back in though for Fulham. Didn't play him last week. He did play in the Cup during the week. Got his 50th goal for the club, Chris.
Yeah, and he brings Fulham that physicality up front, which I felt they were missing certainly last week. He needs to have a big season, Mitrovic does. I have to say, I think Fulham are down. I think defensively they are not good enough. Maybe they could make a statement this afternoon going and beating Leeds at Ellen Road, but I think we're all thinking the same thing. After Leeds' performance against Liverpool, I think we all think Leeds are going to blow Fulham away.
My goodness me, did you say Fulham down already?
He's done this before,
Daryl. Do you think they're going to stay up, Daryl, do you?
Well, I think
optimism from Sutter.
There's time left in the transfer window. You never know what can happen, Chris.
Well, they spent wildly last time, and I'm not saying they're doing it the wrong way this time. I think they've learned lessons from the past, but we can't honestly sit here and think that the likes of Fulham and West Brom are going to stay up. I wonder what the other lads' predictions are. Watch them agree.
Well, I always find with the teams that come up, you get one that relishes the challenge, which looks like it could be Leeds. One will flirt with relegation and one will struggle. I think Leeds will be fine. I think Fulham will be flicking between the two, and I think West Brom will struggle this year.
What do you think, Darren?
I'm in agreement with Chris. I think Fulham are gone after one game. And I think West Brom as well. I don't think they've helped themselves. But I think one thing about you, as Steve just said there, I think Leeds have come up and they're enjoying the challenge. They want to be in the Premier League. Whereas I feel with West Brom and Fulham a little bit last week, and even West Brom today, they're kind of happy to be in the Premier League. So they're happy to be here, but have they got real ambition of staying? I'm not quite sure.
They look well stocked, Leeds, don't they? Because they've got options.
Yes, they do have options, but I mean, this afternoon's game is so intriguing because the fact they played well at Liverpool, because they have this great attacking talent, because they go for it. Imagine if they don't win, though. We'll probably start doubting them.
Who knows? Right, time to hand over to our match commentators, Robbie Savage and Ian Darke. When they take things away on BT Sport 1, here in BT Sport 2, we'll continue to chat. In fact, why don't we have a quick look at the starting lineups right now then, because Leeds have their captain back in the team today. Liam Cooper, who missed out last week through injury, comes back into the starting 11, and that could be important. I mean, they've conceded 4 goals.
Obviously, he's come back into the fold. Over 180 appearances for the club. Could bring a bit of calmness back. And a bit of stability into that back 4. Listen, Fulham will offer enough threat today. It's going to need someone in that back line for Leeds to marshal it, because Mitrovic is going to be a handful. You know what he's like. He loves the hustle. He loves the contact with centre halves. I think he should have got sent off in this fixture in the Championship last time with a clash with Ben White. So, listen, when you've got Cooper, someone as your captain back in the fold, it can only bring steadiness and calm to the team.
Some other decisions have been made as well. Areola in goal instead of Rodak, and Kenny Tetty, who played in the Cup during the week. It's a first league start for him as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they needed to make changes, I felt. They weren't good enough at both ends, to be honest. So hopefully today it can kind of kickstart their season. But it's going to be an intriguing battle because, as Chrissy was saying there earlier, a lot of people are looking at this game now expecting Leeds to win, that they're going to blow them out the water. It doesn't always work out that way.
Did you expect the Fulham changes?
A difficult one. I mean, Scott Parker's already said, I'm not saying he's written some of his players off, but he was clearly disappointed with the defensive display against Arsenal, so he's entitled to make changes. Didn't expect changes from Leeds. We saw continuity and consistency with selection last season in the Championship. Bielsa likes to work with a small squad, so I think he'll keep pretty much the same week in and week out.
Okay. titles.
Yeah, 9 games kicking off at 3 o'clock today in the Championship. Let me take you through the fixtures. It's the first ever meeting between Blackburn Rovers and Wycombe Wanderers in the Championship. Brentford also face Huddersfield. It's the first ever home league game at Brentford's brand new stadium. And some really interesting team news from this match with regards to players that have been linked with moves away. David Raya, the goalkeeper for Brentford, is on the bench, and Saeed Benrahma has been left out of the squad completely. As for Huddersfield, Carlan Grant is also left out. They're unchanged from their last match. All 3 of those players I've mentioned there have been linked with moves away from their clubs and not involved in the starting lineups. An interesting match at Kenilworth Road to look out for as well. Luton facing Derby. And what a start to the season it's been for Nathan Jones's side. 3 wins out of 3 in all competitions. For Derby, Wayne Rooney captains the side today. There's also a couple of matches in the Championship today where we'll see fans in the stadiums. A couple of test events where up to 1,000 fans will be let into the Riverside and at Carrow Road. Middlesbrough are taking on Bournemouth, and we send our well wishes to Neil Warnock, who's isolating after testing positive for coronavirus. He is feeling well, and it was just mild symptoms, but he's unable to take charge of the team today. For Norwich, Alex Neil returning to his old club, of course. He's the Preston manager. And a couple of team news lines from this one as well. Emi Buendia is out of the squad due to injury, but Max Aarons starts for Norwich. We'll ask Chris Sutton about that in just a moment. Just to wrap up the rest of the fixtures, Reading are facing Barnsley. Paunovic looking to make it 2 league wins out of 2 as the new Reading manager. Rotherham face Millwall. Sheffield Wednesday start today on -9 points after picking up 3 points last weekend against Watford today. And Swansea face Birmingham. Swansea are unchanged from their opening day win against Preston. So, Chris, let's talk about Max Aarons then, because he's been linked with moves away to a couple of big clubs, Barcelona and Bayern Munich, but Norwich don't want to let him go.
No, and they're all lovely cities, Munich, Barcelona and Norwich, Jules. The issue with Barcelona is it seems that Barcelona want a loan deal, and there was no fee agreed after the loan deal. So Norwich want to come straight back up. So why should they let him go? What's interesting at Norwich, conceded more goals than anybody else last season in the Premier League, and 3 of the back 4. Jamal Lewis has already gone to Newcastle. You've got Ben Godfrey and Max Aarons, who are in high demand.
Yeah.
Some big early news coming in from Ellen Road. There actually been an injury in the warm-up there. Hernandez was injured in the warm-up, so it's a first league start for Rodrigo, the man they paid a lot of money for in the summer. He comes into the team alongside Bamford now. That changes things a bit, doesn't it, Steve? Ellen Road.
It does, yeah. Rodrigo, he's a player that likes to play on the shoulder of the defence. So when Fulham throwing numbers forward, they're going to have to be careful, especially Hector at the back, because Rodrigo does like to play on transition. So when Leeds win it, they're going to look for that through ball straight away.
Need to keep them out of their own box, Darryl, don't they? Gave away a penalty.
Yeah, yes.
Game on last
Wasn't a great
week.
start,
Keep them
that.
out.
No, absolutely.
Get them up the pitch.
Keep him out, yeah, exactly. Score goals, that's what you're signed for. Andy Brassels here, good to see you, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
I think you're going to get a double fee today because you're watching just about everything. The Bundesliga started last night. Bayern Munich put 8 past Schalke. What a performance that was. We're going to see those goals in a little while. But what else are you keeping an eye on? Not just the Bundesliga, I should say. There's a game in France, a game in Spain as well.
Yeah, that's right. Unai Emery's just kicked off his first game in charge of Villarreal against Eibar. And there's quite a lot of pressure on Unai Emery, actually, because it's of course, not the same sort of pressure as Arsenal or Paris Saint-Germain, but they've spent a lot of money by post-COVID-19 standards. They've spent 35 million on players already this summer. Francis Coquelin is fit to play, the former Arsenal midfielder, so he's on the centre of the pitch. They've got lots of attacking talent out there, so we'll see how they get on. And we've had a few goals in the Bundesliga already as well,
I see it's already Cologne 1, Hoffenheim 1. Sebastian Andersson has equalised, but there was a bit of a pre-season ritual done by the Cologne fans. That caught my eye on Twitter. Explain this for us, please, Andy.
That's right. Well, this happens at the start of every season. Of course, Cologne is famous for its cathedral. In fact, the shadow of the cathedral is actually on the away kit. But despite the fact that they're not allowed any fans in today, because we've got fans all over Germany, but there's been local lockdown, just like there was in Munich last night, which meant there were no fans at Bayern's 8-0 win. But they did have social distancing in the cathedral, and it seems to have done the job, because even though they gave away a really cheap early goal to Andre Kramaric, who of course used to play for Leicester, where he really wasn't one of Claudio Ranieri's favourites, they pegged it back with Sebastian Andersson, their new signing, scoring a front post header.
Yeah, he scored a few last season as well.
Most football fans do that, start the season, pray.
Well, I don't know. Depends what club you're at, I guess, Chris. Depends what club you're at. Shall we have a look at the Sebastian Andersson goal? did well at times last season, didn't he? And he's, well, I think we're about to see it in just a moment, but he's equalised, and those fans who are there to see it will be delighted, and it's so good to see some fans back inside stadiums.
Yeah, it really is, and that's what we've seen from outside a lot of German stadiums before the game's kicking off. We're expecting 10,000 at Dortmund later. Of course, no away fans at the moment, no beer, which is a huge difference in German football as well. But just to get some fans back in there is a start.
Yeah, we've got Borussia Dortmund against Gladbach later on, 5:30 that one on BT Sport. But let's have a look at the goal that I just mentioned then, Sebastian Andersson had.
But anyway, he's done it all over again because Cologne finished last season really badly, and they need to get some points today so they can reverse that negative trend.
And Stuttgart, one of the newly promoted sides, and I can see already they're 2 down against Freiburg, who were a surprise package a bit last season under Christian Streich. Salai has got the second in the game for Freiburg, so not the start that Stuttgart and their fans had dreamed of, Andy.
No, and Thomas Hitzelsberger, the sporting director, has really struggled to get players in the door there this summer. They're working off a bit of a budget. Gomez has left already.
Well, let's just see this through for just a moment. That's the second goal there for Freiburg. But the big talking point, the shout in the studio, it's a goal for Leeds United at Elland Road.
And this sums Fulham up. First set piece, Scott Parker will be pulling his hair out. They didn't deal with it last week against Arsenal. A great ball whipped in. Helder Costa just hangs out the back here.
Really good first touch, and he's just thinking power, and he unleashes an unstoppable strike. I don't think we can blame the keeper for that.
What it is on there from the corner, you can see there that the Fulham are going half zonal, half marking. So the ones that are zonal, I think it was Reed that was there. Hector needs just to come, take charge, early, an early shout, sorts it out basically.
They both turned their backs, Steve.
Well, he did last week against Arsenal, done exactly the same thing.
But why is he playing this week then?
He's centre half. Well, Scott's, run the changes. Maybe he's a bit weak in defensive frailties at the minute, but it's poor again from Fulham.
Do you know what doesn't help Fulham either is that 2 weeks now they're probably set up all week to play a certain way, and both game plans have had to go out the window because they conceded early against Arsenal last week, they conceded early again today, so they're not giving themselves any opportunity in any game.
Ominous for Fulham, it seems at the moment, doesn't it, Darren? Jules?
Yeah, a couple of goals to tell you about, early ones in League Two. Cheltenham Town leading Tranmere Rovers by 1-0, and in Harrogate's first home game in the Football League, they're already a goal down to Walsall. It's Harrogate 0, Walsall 1. Just to bring you up to date with all the other fixtures to look out for, we've picked out a few key games in League One and League Two today. Blackpool versus Swindon is one where we're going to be watching closely after Swindon's great start to life in League One last Saturday. They were 3-0 up before half-time in their win against Rochdale. They face Blackpool at Bloomfield Road today. We're also going to be watching the last 2 losing League One playoff finalists go head-to-head. That's Oxford versus Sunderland. Wigan face Gillingham. It's been a really tricky time for Wigan off the pitch. They'll be hoping for some joy on the pitch today. In League Two at lunchtime, Carlisle beat Southend by 2-0. Colchester against Bolton, another one of the matches we're looking out for. 3 defeats out of 3 in all competitions for Ian Evatt as the Bolton manager, so not a good start for them. Leyton Orient take on Mansfield today, and Leyton Orient have had a brilliant start to this campaign. 4 wins out of 4 in all competitions. In the Scottish Premiership, there are 4 matches kicking off at 3 o'clock, including Celtic taking on Livingston. Celtic will go top of the table on goal difference with a win because Rangers play at Hibs tomorrow, and defeat would also send Livingston bottom, Darryl.
Superb info, Jules. Thank you very much indeed. Right, you might have seen that last week we had reporters out at non-league grounds. We're seeing how teams are adapting at that level with COVID restrictions left, right and centre. But we'll get Jeff Brazier and Becky Ives reporting for us this week. Let's come to Jeff first then. Jeff, where are you this week? Don't tell me you're close to home again.
Might be a little bit close to home, Darryl, but look, good afternoon to you. I'm at Harlow Town Football Club as they host FC Romania in their first game of the European Central League season. There's around 200 supporters here, and there's definitely tight COVID measures in place, but the challenges for any non-league side will not just be getting their own players and supporters to follow the rules. What happens if the opposition are more relaxed in their approach and squeeze 20 people in the dressing rooms? What if someone gets ill following a visit to the ground? Would everyone present need to self-isolate as a result? And it would be on hand to even enforce that. So there's lots of questions to be asked. We're going to see how Harlow Town, as a typical non-league football club, albeit they've got a lovely ground for the level, how they're adapting to the new measures and coping with those additional responsibilities. And at present, it's Harlow 0, FC Romania 0.
great stuff. There is so much to think about, isn't there, for all those non-league clubs. Over to Becky Ives now. Becky, I believe you're on familiar ground.
Yeah, I certainly am, Daryl. I'm back at Hellzo in town. Their game against Yankees today, the first one for them in the Southern League Central Division 1. And we've got about 400 socially distanced fans with us today. Now, the reason that I've come back is I followed them a bit last season as they were having their best season to date. They sat second in the league by 1 point with a game in hand, and they were just preparing to play their FA Trophy semi-final when COVID struck. Unfortunately, their season got null and void, which meant all their efforts were in vain, and it cost this club roughly £100,000. Now, I've come back today. I'm gonna bring you updates on the pitch, but also off it, of how fans have turned fundraisers and just how a club like Hellzo in town is literally surviving on a shoestring. And just Daryl and Jules, very quickly before I leave you for this first one, I've got a new friend here. This is Viva. It is her first football game today. She is 4 months old, so I'm going to do my best to do some work, to be honest. But, you know, I found a friend to watch this one. This is what's unique about non-league grounds. Still 0-0 at the minute.
Jules is all about that, aren't you?
Oh, that is amazing. I love that, Becky. I've just got a new French bulldog at home. That's why that's touched my heart a little bit. Little Pablo, he's watching, I'm told. He is actually watching. Hi, Pablo. He can't say hi back.
Figures up. I'm delighted he's watching. Absolutely delighted, Jules. A few goals to tell you about in Scotland as Kilmarnock 1, Hamilton 0. Greg Kilty's got that goal. Lincoln City ahead as well today. You probably saw that one flash through. Michael Appleton's men absolutely flying at the start of the season. They're on course perhaps for another victory today. A goal in Germany, Augsburg, 1 goal to the good there. Another one as well in Germany, just come through. Hertha Berlin, managed by Bruno Labbadia. They're ahead against Werder Bremen, who needed a playoff to stay up last season. And in League One, it's Shrewsbury 0, Northampton 1. Mark Marshall has scored there for Northampton. We mentioned Scotland, Chris. I want to come to you on Scotland and Celtic. Odsonne Edouard not among the starting 11 for Neil Lennon's side today. That could be a really, really big story. I don't think he was at his best midweek, but surely trying to keep him happy during this transfer window is a key, is it not?
Well, I think you're being a bit mischievous there, Daryl, because we don't actually know the reasoning why he's left him out.
Well,
yes, I agree with you that it's a surprise. I think Celtic supporters would think it's a huge surprise, of course. And I think there's been criticism of the manager for chopping and changing. He did say in the midweek that he would rotate the squad, and it's a danger because Celtic haven't hit top form. So, you know, the fact he's not starting, people like yourself may start asking questions, will Edouard leave? I've said before, Celtic cannot sell Edouard in this window. If they ended up not getting the 10, the fans wouldn't forgive the hierarchy at Celtic.
People like myself, Chris, any Celtic fan watching right now wants to see, as you've said, their best player on the pitch. It's not as if it's a really tough schedule like this.
We don't know whether he's carrying. Yeah, we don't know whether he's carrying an injury.
Well, you always say to me, he shouldn't be on the bench then.
Yes, but I'm not managing Celtic. But I do agree with you. If they're fit enough for the bench, fit enough to start. But let's wait and hear what Neil Lennon has to say after it, Daryl, and then you can ask me next week.
Maybe they won't need him at home against Livingston. Should we look back at the early Premier League kick-off now, Darren? What a result, what a start for Everton. And Carlo Ancelotti scoring 5 today.
Yeah, absolutely superb, ruthless. I mean, Calvert-Lewin at the minute's on a different planet, but what I like about Everton this season, or certainly on in the early parts of this season, is how ruthless they are in front of goal, how they're defending a lot better, they're creating opportunities, they seem comfortable in possession, and as I said, they've got a man up the other end of the pitch who's scoring goals regularly, and I think that moving forward, if he can stay fit, because he's come back, Calvert-Lewin, fit, strong, it looks like he's got a purpose this season. We've got the Euros in season, and surely on this type of form, he's got to be at the forethinking of Gareth's mind.
Get him in the England squad, Chris?
Would I get in the England squad in place of who, Daryl?
Well,
Anyone really, no?
Not Harry Kane?
Depends
That's
who's
one.
scoring. Danny Ings.
But I mean, Danny Ings proved himself, I think, more last season than Calvert-Lewin has. But if he carries on this form, then of course he would put himself well in contention. I think Steve mentioned it last season, didn't you, Steve?
I did. Now
You were impressed with him.
I was very impressed with him. Yeah, I mean, towards the back end of the season, he was in some fine form. And I did mention on the score show that if he carries on, he might have a chance of sneaking into that squad. Chris actually laughed at that concept.
Yeah, but in fairness to me, I laugh at most things Steve says.
It would be trying to get into fun.
Do you know what?
Right.
Yeah.
It's always right.
There's a lot of love for James Rodriguez, though, after another brilliant performance for Everton today. Let me read you out a couple of these tweets. Dean Bilton said he's played all of 180 minutes in an Everton shirt, but I'm quite comfortable in saying James Rodriguez is the best footballer I've ever seen play for Everton. Mati Raya says James Rodriguez is having an instant impact in the Everton team. That's what great and established talents do. And JJ says, are we finally seeing the Everton I dreamt of? Not Jermaine Gina, some other Everton fan, I'm assuming. And we did a poll actually asking who the best summer signings have been so far to the Premier League. James Rodriguez getting 18% vote. I've got a feeling that this might change throughout the day after seeing him once again impress in an Everton shirt. 24% of the vote went to Gareth Bale and 48% of the vote going to Thiago after his signing for Liverpool was completed. Mr. Kai Havertz with 10% of that vote. If you want to vote on that poll, you can find it at BT Sports Score on. So, what do you reckon of those poll results, Darren? Do you think that Thiago's a worthy win? Is he the best signing?
Listen, but I guess by name stature, you'd have to say Thiago. But I thought Rodriguez is going to have more of an impact because I think he's going to get more game time. Do you know what I mean? He started 2 games. Thiago, I can see him with the injuries that he's had.
Thiago's a bigger name than Gareth
It's a
Bale.
bigger name, but when I meant by that kind of statement, I believe that.
Backtrack.
Yeah, listen,